So I want to jump in tonight. I want to jump into our lesson because we're studying honeybee biology. And I'm going to be sharing about how improving, how you gain more knowledge about honeybee biology and how that transforms and improves your inspections. Okay, so that's exciting for all of us. How do you do a better inspection? Well, the more bee biology that you know and that you understand, the more it's going to make sense to you. So, an inspection, when you inspect your hive, which you should do about twice a month, when you inspect, it requires knowing biology. And let's face it, anybody can look in a hive, right? I mean, anybody could put a bee suit on, beekeeper or not, take the lid off and look in there and go, huh. But if they don't have any knowledge about bee biology, they won't have a clue what they're looking at. So not everyone understands what's going on when they take the lid off and start their inspection. And so understanding bee biology is what helps us really know what's going on. So let's jump right into the idea of understanding more about bees so we can have a better bee inspection. So the basic bee biology of what you'll see in the hive, I want to first start with this. When you open up a hive, especially all of you that are either new to beekeeping or you just haven't quite grasped the basic bee biology, let's start with what we're going to see when we look at the bee comb. That's the wax on the frame, the bee comb. Well, the first thing you can see is, and I'll show you images in just a minute, but the first thing that you'll notice is open cells. And this is a term we use, we call it drawn out. When you first give bees a frame, like if you're using either wax or plastic foundation, it's only foundation when it's brand new. It has no comb on it. The bees have to produce the wax to make the comb. And so when they make the comb, we call that frame drawn out. That means they've added the wax and they've built comb onto your basic foundation frame. And so when they first draw it out, it's empty. And so there's nothing in it, no eggs, there's no resources. It's just an empty, drawn out frame, comb. Okay, the next thing you can identify is that it could have eggs in the cells, or it could have larvae in the cells, or it could have pupae. That's bee biology. That is the stages of brood that we're looking for when we do an inspection. We're looking for eggs, larvae, and pupae. Hey, look at that. Look at Sam. He's a member of our YouTube channel now. Thanks, Sam. So the other thing is we need to look for is the kind of like where the resources are placed. So we talked about the brood. Now let's talk about the resources. Now, again, if you add a honey super on and you give them a new frame, they're going to draw it out. And at first that will just be an empty, drawn out honey super frame. It's in the top of your brood nest area. So they're not going to put any eggs or larvae or pupae up there. They're going to just put honey up there. So that's going to be first empty. And then they're going to add resources to it. And the resources they add are nectar, honey, pollen, and bee bread. Another member of our YouTube channel, Janelle. So thank you. So this is what we're going to be looking for, either empty frames in the brood area or empty frames in our honey super. And then we look for what they put in those cells in those frames. They're either going to put eggs, larvae, or pupae in the brood area, or they're going to put maybe nectar and then dry it into honey, or they may put pollen or bee bread. So that is a basic bee biology of understanding how bees raise their brood and add resources in their home. Okay, I told you I'd show you an image of brood, okay? I tried to get all three stages of brood, but I saw one egg at the bottom, down there in the bottom right-hand side. Anyway, so you'll see eggs, and then you'll see the larvae. They're the little grub, little worm types more in the middle. And then to the far left, you'll see the capped over pupae. So this is important to realize. This is what you're looking for when you do an inspection. This is what you're trying to see how well your bees are doing. A lot of people just look at the cap brood and make a decision. Oh, is my cap a solid brood pattern, meaning there's not many holes or missing cells in it. But you need to be able to look, have a trained eye to make sure you have lots of eggs and lots of good, healthy larvae that are pearly white. Another image is this. Now, a lot of people on my B Team 6, hey, thanks, Alex, for your super chat donation today. Appreciate that, Alex. So a lot of you will text me or email me, I guess, on my B Team 6, and you'll say, do I have any eggs? And maybe you'll send me a picture like this. Well, if you look closely, it's very confusing to especially new beekeepers because the bottom, or really the back of the cell, when we look into it, it has like a Y, the letter Y in it. It's actually the cell on the base, a foundation cell on the other side. So there always is this idea that, or this misconception that when you look at that, you might consider that little Y down there, a part of that Y, as an egg. So some people will actually confuse what they're seeing at the back of the wall of the cell as an egg. So get familiar with knowing how a comb is built and what's in the back of the cell so that you don't confuse it. So you'll know by looking at that, that's an empty comb. Okay, so a lot of people wonder about these types of things that we see in the hive. And my bee bread, the word bread went all the way over under nectar. Sorry about that. It's supposed to be under bee. Bee bread is to the far right. So anyway, nectar on the far left. Now let's talk about nectar. Nectar is not honey. Nectar is from the nectaries of flowers. It's very moist. It's 80% moisture. And so they bring it back in their honey crop and they put it in their cells like this. It's not honey yet. Now the next image under honey is when they dry it down to about 16 to 18% moisture. And then to keep it that way, they want to seal it off. And what do they have at their disposal? Wax. They can make wax. So they make wax and they take their little mouth parts and they work it and they cap over the honey that is what we would say ripe, 16 to 18%. It's very thick. And that way, no more moisture is going to re-enter it and make it too moist in the future. So it's like a canning jar. Once they get it all ready to be canned, they're going to seal it off with the top. So you see, that's what it looks like. So there's two different things: nectar before they cap it, honey after they cap it. And then we have pollen. This is from the plants, the flowers, the trees, and all that bees go to, and they pollinate plants and trees by carrying this male pollen to other plants, and it germinates or pollinates the other plants. But a lot of it sticks to their body. It's strong in protein, and they bring it back to the colony and they put it in cells, as you see here, and they pack it in there as their steak dinner. Steak has a lot of protein, or maybe a salmon dinner. It has a lot of protein in it. That's what bees need. They need protein. They don't just eat honey or nectar. They eat protein. They need that pollen to consume as well. They eat what we do. So, and then bee bread over here on the far right. If you look closely, you can see that the pollen looks a little wet in there. That's because the bees have added a little bit of their own enzymes to it, and they've added a little bit of nectar to it. And this causes this pollen to start to ferment. And it's a way of storing it, actually, storing it a little bit longer. And so some of this, after it's been stored a long time, the bee bread actually becomes very wet looking. It almost looks like wet brown colored tar. And they store that in the hive as well. So this is what it looks like when you start to look in your hive. Now, another thing is going to help you with your inspection when it comes to basic bee biology is you need to understand what's going on the combs. So as you can see on the far left here, we have we would typically call this a queen cup. We call it a cup because if you flip it upside down, it looks like a teacup. So it's not really a cell, although technically it is a cell, but it's easier to call it a cup because, it's not capped over yet. Now, you'll see these queen cups. All of you that are new, pay close attention because I get this question asked so often. And people will see this little queen cup and panic that the hive is superseding, replacing their queen, or they're going to swarm. Now, this queen cup, you'll see these in every hive that has a very healthy queen. You'll always have a chance to see these queen cups. They are there in case they need them. The only way to tell if it's what somebody once said and started a pretty good term, charged, is it charged? And what that word charge means is actually, is there a larvae inside that cell? So the only way to tell is take out your flashlight and look in the top, or the bottom, I guess, the bottom of that cup to see if there's any royal jelly with a larvae floating in it. If there's nothing in it, if it's empty, it's just there in case they need it. But as it matures and it is needed, look what happens on the right image. You can see that on one side, the right side, one has already emerged. Wow, you guys are joining my YouTube channel tonight. Thank you. Appreciate that, Matthew. So you can see the little trap door at the bottom. It's hanging down a little bit on the right side. The queen kind of nipped away at it, opened the little hatch door, and escaped on day 16 when she matured. The other one, I don't know if it's really, can't tell if it hatched open, but one thing I want to show you, pay close attention on the bottom of that cell, there's a little bald area. It looks kind of tan color, reddish tan on the side there. That means it's ready to open when you see it getting bald on the tip or the bottom of a queen cell. Yep. So when it comes to queen cells, we do have swarm cells that appear on the bottom of the frames in large numbers. And then we have the supersedure cell that appears in the middle of the frame in very minimal numbers, maybe one or two. So in the supersedure, it means that your queen is no longer working well, something's wrong, they're going to replace her. But a swarm cell means that the hive is doing so well, so populated, that half of them are going to leave with the old queen and leave and find a new home. And meanwhile, the swarm cells are going to emerge. Those queens will fight it out. And finally, there'll be one queen left. She'll go on a mating flight, come back, and be the new queen. All right. So then we have on the comb as well, we have capped worker brood, capped drone brood, and then we have the bees, adult workers, drones, and one queen. And so when you think about what that looks like, you can look at on the left, you can see the worker cap brood, how it looks real smooth. It looks pretty good brood pattern. But over here on the right side, this is what drone brood looks like. And you can even see, if you look closely, you can see a drone emerging. So drone brood is more of what I would call a bullet type top to it. It looks like a little bullet sticking up through the comb, and it's not smooth. So these are larger cells usually, and they are more sticking up more on the tops, where worker brood is more smooth on the top as well. By the way that you can tell the difference between worker brood and honey, which is sometimes confusing, is that the worker brood, the caps of worker brood has a more textured appearance to it. It's not as smooth and waxy looking as a frame of capped over honey is. Capped over honey is very waxy looking, where this looks more like cloth. And if you're not sure, you can always take a little toothpick and open one up, and you'll either see honey or you'll see two eyes looking at you. All right. So the other thing that I want to look at is understanding how the bees work and how things are, the process of them going through their development cycle. So this is important bee biology. We're going to be starting a series real soon on how to raise queens. And so this is going to be paramount that you understand this right here so that you can understand how to better raise queens. Knowing these numbers are important. Even if you're not raising queens, you want to keep your bees healthy. You need this. You need to know this information. Okay. So when you look into your hive and you see on the bottom left, those eggs right there, but I can tell by looking at them, they were laid about 2 or 3 hours ago, 4 or 5 hours ago, not very long at all. They're almost straight up. So the queen recently just laid those. They start to bend over after they get like on day 2, day 3. But anyway, these eggs are going to be eggs from day 1, 2, and 3 after the queen laid them there. So they're going to be eggs for 3 days. After day 3, on day 4, as you can see in the image on the right, they change over into larvae. So you can see day 4 through 9, the larvae starts kind of small. Now, here's a good tip. It starts small, very tiny, and then it gets larger to the place where it gradually grows in age and fills up the entire cell till about day 9 when you can see those top larvae there. They're taking up every bit of space in those cells. But then on day 10, on the very top of that slide, you can see they've capped it over because those larvae have now entered into the pupae stage. And by the way, that's how we say it, bee biology. One is a larva, and more than one, it's a larvae. Same with pupa. One capped over cell is a pupa, and more than one, they are pupae. Pupae. So that's the proper pronunciation, and don't forget it. Okay, so and then on day 10 through day 21, you can see they're capped over, and then they pupate. They actually make a cocoon inside their cell as they pupate, and they rotate around, and then eventually they emerge out of their capped cell on day 21. Amazing, isn't it? Okay, what about the drone brood? A little bit different on their dates a little bit. Now, I said on the worker brood, the female workers emerge on day 21. Everything is the same. The day of the eggs, 1 to 3, the larva, day 4 to 9, and then the pupae, though, is different. It is capped over for the drones on day 10. This is a picture of drone brood, and you can see a drone emerging because his eyes are separated. They're not separated. They're big eyes there. Anyway, the drone emerges on day 24. 3 more longer days to emerge for the drone. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? And then I didn't talk about the queen. Well, the queen is similar, but her cell, she emerges on day 16. So all of her eggs and larvae dates are basically the same, but she emerges as a pupae, as an adult bee from the pupal stage, 16 days after the egg was laid. Wow, they need her in a hurry. And so we don't have to wait around for queens to emerge. That's important to know too when you're raising queens. So let's talk about the Workers' Labor Task Force and what they do on what days. This is important to understand too. When you do a hive inspection, if you know what days bees do things, then that'll give you a lot of information on how well your colony is doing and if everything is going to be okay. So as the bees get older, as they go through their different days, their work changes because physiology, how do I say that word? They change, and as their body changes, then they have different glands, they have different pheromones that are working. So let's go through that. Day 1 through 2, the first couple of days after they're born, this is not the egg or anything. That's an adult. They begin cleaning cells and keeping brood warm. They don't have a lot going on for them. They can't sting you. Their stinger's too soft. They just don't have a lot of glands producing a lot of stuff yet. So they're just kind of doing, household duties until they get a little bit older. But on day 3 through 5, they're able then to walk around, move around a little bit more so they can carry some brood food and feed the larvae. They can carry around honey or nectar or pollen so they can take care of older larvae. They can't take care of younger larvae, only older larvae that are eating a different diet. Remember, here's another important bee biology that you need to know. All bees, all 1 to 3 day old larvae eat royal jelly. Yeah, they all eat royal jelly until they get past that third day. So on the young larvae then need to be fed royal jelly. So when they're 1, 2, 3 day old larvae, then they're being fed royal jelly. And so the nurse bees, which are ages 6 through 11, go to work because now they have glands that produce royal jelly during the time period of day 6 through 11. Those glands dry up on day 12. So they can make royal jelly when they're 6 to 11 days old, and they feed what needs to eat royal jelly at that time, and it's very young larvae, 1 to 3 day old larvae. So that's what their job is at that point. Now on day 11, their glands dry up with royal jelly, but their wax glands develop. So see, they're changing, their body is changing, so therefore they have to change their work. They can't feed royal jelly anymore, but they can make wax. So day 12 through 17, below their abdomen, they have wax glands that produce wax. Bees don't go out and get wax, they make it. And so they make this wax, and what they do, they build comb at this age, and they also are responsible for transporting food. So if a forager comes back, some of these some of these 17 or 12 to 17-day old bees may grab the incoming nectar from the forager and then carry it up where they're going to deposit it in the honey super comb up above so that the forager doesn't have to make that long trip. So they transport food around. And then on day 18 through 21, the bees now stand guard duty. It gets them out in the open. They might fly a little bit out there, but they've flown a little bit already. They fly to defecate. They stay close to home, but they're flying around the entrance or hanging out, guarding against other insects that aren't welcome in their hive. And then finally on day 22, day 23, they go out foraging for nectar, pollen, propolis, and water. This is what they do until they die in the summertime, around between days 35 and 45, when they finally die. So knowing this gives us so much leverage and understanding what we're seeing and how we proceed to move forward. So if we're looking to open up a hive and we want to know if our bees are doing well, we'll open up a hive and we'll look for how many eggs do we see. We know the ages of eggs. Day 1, day 2, and then when it lays down as a larvae, that's day 3. So we can tell, if we know this basic bee biology, we can look at our hive and we can tell how our queen's doing. And I've always valued knowing this brood pattern of all these brood stages, because if I lost my queen and she's no longer there, or let me back up. If I open up a hive and I'm doing an inspection, but I don't see any eggs, and the youngest larvae that I see is a larvae that's about 5 days old, making the complete circle almost, but not quite nine days old. But then I know that my queen died 5 days ago. The last time she was alive was about 5 days ago. So you can just do the math like that, and you know exactly what happened. So understanding the age of the brood cycle of the honeybee allows you to know what's going on in your hive when things happened and what's going on. You might think back and say, oh, that was a day that the hive fell over, got knocked over by a bear or something. So my queen must have died then, So you can use all that information on the brood. And you can also do the same with predicting the future of your hive. Like if you see a poor brood pattern, if you don't see many eggs, you can actually do extensive, more complicated assessment of your hive. For those of you that are more advanced beekeepers, you can actually look at your hive and determine whether your queen is laying poorly because you don't see a lot of eggs, or if she's laying really well, but they're consuming the eggs. And that way, you're low on resources. So you don't have to replace your queen. You have to give more resources so they don't eat the eggs as protein. So bees will cannibalize the eggs if they're low on protein. And so using all this kind of telemetry allows you to open up a hive, look at frames really quickly and say, aha, I see what's going on here. They're starving out. I need to give them more food. Of course, then you use the resources to make those decisions. Yeah, I don't see any protein in the cells. I don't see any nectar in the cells. And I see spotty brood, they're eating eggs. See how fun that is when you know bee biology and understand bees? It's a lot of fun. I love it, actually. Yeah, it's fun. Well, that's fun. I think I'm going to have one more lesson on bee biology next week, and then we're going to jump into queen rearing. So be sure and join me if as we finish up bee biology next week, and then get into raising queens, and that's going to be good for us. All right, let's take a moment and get into some questions. By the way, look at this. I believe her name was Amy, but I can't remember now. Amby's Honey from Oklahoma sent me a jar of honey, and something happened. Well, what happened? It didn't spill. Well, thank you for that jar of honey. I will never turn down a jar of honey. I love tasting honey from different places, so that's a lot of fun. All right, question time. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. So many of you are here. Appreciate you being here. And thank you, Sherry and Robbie and Jessica, for doing all the administration work, keeping the live stream going tonight. Good to have a team behind me. I appreciate you guys. Pamela, can I wrap with burlap and sheet plastic? They have winter bee kinds on. I don't see any, your burlap's going to get wet, but maybe you're going to put the sheet plastic over that. You're kind of making up a way to wrap your hive. I don't think it's going to be a bad thing to do anything. Anything is going to help. Let's put it that way. Yeah. You don't want anything to hold a lot of water right next to the hive, but anything will help. Oh, Randy, how are you? How cold can your bees take? An interesting bee biology fact is that a single honeybee is cold-blooded, but a colony is warm-blooded. So a bee by itself can only take temperatures up to about or down to about 32 degrees. And then a single bee by herself is going to freeze, and the cells in her body will die. She will die if she freezes. So you can't freeze a bee. But bee colonies that are very healthy and strong and are clustering together can withstand extremely frigid temperatures if they're healthy and have a lot of food to consume. Thank you guys for donating. Thanks, Mark. What cluster size is considered struggling? It depends on where you live. For Illinois here, I need 40,000 bees in a cluster to not struggle. 40,000. So about the size of 4 packages of bees. But I'm in Illinois where we can get 20 below zero, and I think we will next week. Boo. All right. Let's see. I had something to say about the questions. Oh, yeah. Oh, well, say it later then. I have 2 long hives. The bees seem to be happy, but I have not gotten any honey from them for 2 years. It will be moving them back into regular hives next spring. Do you have any thoughts on why? No, I can't really say. I know you're saying, do I have any thoughts? And I would have to kind of think that through. I think it feels like to me that my hives do better in a vertical hive than a horizontal hive. I know I might get a lot of hate from the horizontal community, but I just do better with vertical hives, like a traditional Langstroth hive, you see a lot of that. I mean, I'm not saying I've never seen a horizontal hive when I've taken them out of buildings and such, but mostly when I take hives out of trees, out of buildings, they're all vertical like a Langstroth. So it may just be tougher. Don't know. Yeah. Melissa, all looked great when I added food to the top 2 weeks ago. Last weekend, total dead out. Ideas, 1 mite count in the fall. Tons of bees and food. No top entrance on hive. Double bubble under inner cover. Yeah, Melissa, sorry to hear about that. I know that's tragic, and especially if you're a new beekeeper, and it's really tragic if it's your first loss. I remember the first time I lost a hive, I was just devastated. After you lose a bunch, you get kind of hardened. But it's not a laughing matter. The only thing I can say, Melissa, is that sometimes when we do everything right, the hive will still die. This is true of any living creature, including humans. You can have the best diet, exercise properly, never drink, smoke, and do anything that, never eat sugar. I mean, all the things they say are bad for you. You can just live the perfect life and you can still die early of a disease. So it just means that we do the best we can. And sometimes doing all of that, the bees are still going to die. So it's hard to really know what happened. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to know about the autopsy. I think you could look and see if you see any mites that are hanging out on the top. I mean, they'll be dead, but there could be mites on the top bars of your frames. You might see, just look around and see if you see signs of dysentery where bees pooped all over the frames. That might mean they had nosema, might have died from nosema. You might be able, but all in all, it's really hard to tell from why your bees died once they're dead. You're better off to look through your notes and see if what happened in the year that was unique. Did they have a low population? Did I have a good queen, good brood pattern all the way up to the fall? Things like that would help a lot. Thanks, Sunshine. How are you? Thanks for your donation tonight. Good to see you. Susan, silly question. How is it that we don't dislodge the eggs when we remove frames and look at them, especially when the egg is 1 day old and standing straight up? That, Susan, is the answer why I find it hard to believe that bees carry eggs around, because the eggs are extremely sticky. Now, some people say they have pictures of bees, with holding an egg or something, but bees don't have tiny little fingers like we do to manipulate those eggs. Maybe they can manipulate them better than I think. The eggs are real sticky. Yeah, they're not going to fall out. Very sticky eggs. Grafts are the same way, young larvae. Can you damage the queen if you turn the frame upside down? Oh, you can damage the queen in her cell. If she is under the age of 13 days old in a capped queen cell, if she's under 13 days old and it's in this position and you tilt it this way, yes, you can damage your queen and kill her. Her wings could get stuck in that cocoon area. She's designed to be this way. So we need to be more careful. I'm not as careful as I should be when I look at frames, but certainly, yeah, that she can be damaged. Hey, Robert. How long can royal jelly stay stored in a cup cell with no egg in it? This interesting thing about royal jelly in a queen cell. When you learn to raise your own queens, like you want a lot of royal jelly, they make a lot of royal jelly. You're watching it, making sure they're feeding the queen larvae really well, but they cap it off, on about day 10, as we know, because we just had a lesson in bee biology, day 9 or 10. But when the queen emerges on day 16, if you do an examination of the queen cell after she walks out of it, peel it open and look at the royal jelly, it's hard. It's very hard. And it looks like it's not consumable anymore. I run a lot of queen cells in my incubators. And so I feed queens because they'll try to go back in and eat that rolled jelly. So it doesn't stay fresh very long when exposed to the air. It will dry out. All right. What other questions do you have, Chad? Let me watch my time here. We have a giveaway coming up. Cool. How long does a new queen leave on her? How long does a new queen leave on her first flight? Nobody really knows. She'll fly out on her first mating flight. I've heard numbers of around less than 20 minutes. She'll be gone on a mating flight. She flies far away to get away from her brothers, and she'll mate. She'll go to a drone congregation area where drones are hanging out a little further than her brothers would go, and she mates with drones and comes back. Now she may take more than one mating flight. She doesn't have to. Mating with one drone is enough to give her enough stored sperm in her spermatheca where she can be a very productive queen. But what we don't like about that is it doesn't have variety of DNA genetics. So we need a variety of genetics to have a healthy spermatheca, a healthy dose of a variety of DNA in that queen. So we want her to mate with, I think the average she mates with is about 17 drones, but it can be up to 40. So the more diverse the DNA is, the better. Yes. Is cat brood top has the same wax as capped honey wax? Is it the same? No, it actually is not the same. It has more fibers in it. It's a little bit different. It's more porous than the honey is. Yeah, I've looked into that. A little bit different. And it's amazing that some of the treatments don't penetrate the cat brood. Formic Pro does, but I don't think the others do to kill the mites. Do you defrost your winter bee kind before adding it to the hive? I have really warm days, but the polar vortex coming this week, I want to add a winter bee kind to the girls. It's in the freezer now. That's a good question. Yes, always thaw it out at room temperature. Let it sit out there for what? I don't know, 10 hours. It'd probably be thawed out. So it's the reason is because I always like to bait my bees to go to it. Like I'll put a little bit of dab of honey on there. I'll put it on the hive. So I don't want a cold block of dried ice on there, dried sugar on there. That's going to take a little bit long for them to get to. However, I will say that even honey that's up in your super, if the bees are really far down below, your honey will freeze on a really cold spell, and the bees just warming up when they get up there. So they have the potential they have the ability to warm up whatever they want to eat, but it just takes a little bit of the work out of what they need to do. Hey, Tammy, 7 full frames of honey on top of brood box for winter. Will the honey and the super be gone in the spring? Well, Tammy, 7 full frames of honey. Will it be gone in the spring? It depends on how much is in your deep boxes. Is there honey stored down in the deep where the brood area is? They might eat that and then go up to the super. If you're in a really cold climate like I am in Illinois here, they would have probably eaten that up by now. Yeah, no kidding. Oh my gosh. Because they have to eat to stay warm. So it would be gone in my hives. That's why I need a super and a winter bee kind and keep replacing my winter bee kinds over and over and over, week by week. Yep. Let's take a couple of more and then we'll have a giveaway. Janelle, I have some fondant on my hive that the bees are working on. Can I put my winter bee kind board on top so that I know they will still be set during this cold spell? Yeah, if it doesn't block, if one doesn't block the other, if the bees have access to both, it'll work fine. Some fondants cover up your entrance hole on your inner cover. I guess the little hole on your inner cover. If that fondant covers that hole up and you put a winter bee kind on top of there, it won't work at all. So your food has to be accessible to the bees. So yeah, if both foods are accessible, that'd be fine. All right, Tammy, extracted honey super end of July, added another super for the bees for winter and treated with Apivar at the same time. Oh, okay. Will the honeycomb still have the Apivar in the super by spring? That is a question that is often asked. Yeah. So the way that I would deal with that, I think I've only used Apivar one time. That's Amatrez. I think I've only used it one time, and that was in a video because it is pretty stout stuff. And the way that I would do it, I would make sure that I would not ever, and that's just me, I would never use any honey from a honey super that was on the hive when I treated with Apivar. Does that make sense? Now, if nothing was in there, it's not really bad to get into the comb and all, you'd probably be okay, but I just kind of don't like the idea of that. Yeah, read the label. The label's the law. Let's see. Let's do one more and then we'll have a giveaway and then we'll take some more. How do you inspect a hive when my bees are all eating the honeybee healthy? I'm afraid to disturb them in the cold weather. Oh, you must mean they're eating the winter bee kind. You cannot inspect a colony in the wintertime. So if the temperatures are below 65 degrees Fahrenheit, I don't know what that is in Celsius, but if it's 65 degrees Fahrenheit or lower, never lift a frame out of your hive. It will kill the developing pupae. And so you can't do an inspection if it's cold outside. It has to be warm outside. All right, we're going to have a giveaway right now because I do have a live stream coming up a couple of weeks from now on how to raise queens. I'm going to give away one of my queen rearing online courses. So you can have a chance to get ahead of the game and get knowledgeable about, or at least get your feet wet about how do you raise queens. When I first started, it seemed so complicated. I was like, how will I ever learn to raise queens? So hashtag queen in the comment section right now. Please, if you've won before, or if you win something every week, if you won something last week or this month or something, try not to go for this and let somebody else win. I know it's hard, but we want everybody to have a chance to win. So yeah, so hashtag queen, and we'll get that queen rearing course out to you. These courses are really good. My online courses are video courses of me in the field and lecturing you on how to raise queens. It'd be really good for you to understand. In this video and this series of lessons on this class, I actually went into great detail showing how to do grafting. That's the key. And we did some real close-up images on how to transfer the 1-day-old larvae. 3 days from this it was laid, but the 1-day-old larvae over to a queen cup. That's the hardest part. Everything else is pretty easy. So once you get the queen grafting transfer down, you'll do good. So yeah, get a hold of this class right now. We're going to be giving it away. Somebody left a capital Q. I think it needs to be lower Q. So put it in there again. It'd be hashtag lower QUEEN. Thank you, Robert. Well, I appreciate you as well. So appreciate your donation for the live stream tonight. Your donations help us to stay on the air and to give away things. So always great to see the community become part of the experience of helping everybody out as well. Yep, appreciate it. All right. What we got going on? A lot of people still putting their name down for the queen rearing course. That means a lot of you really want to raise queens. I'm glad to see that. Yep. Thank you. That's great. I'm glad. I think that's one of the best ways to learn about bees is raise queens. Be sure and subscribe to this video, by the way, and give me a thumbs up. That helps a lot. All lowercase, guys. Wow. It just keeps going. Everybody keeps putting queen, queen, queen. Hashtag queen. Go. Chad made it in. Mr. Allen made it in. Okay, Robbie is tired of waiting. Let's see who's going to win tonight, the queen rearing class. By the way, when we're done spinning, whoever wins, banner will scroll across. There it is. And you need to email us within 24 hours to beaksquadwinner@gmail.com so we can get this class out to you. Sunshine made it in. Hashtag queen. James made it in. Oh, man. I feel bad spinning it. All of you are still rooting for it. All right, Robbie, you're just going to have to, we can't stay here all night. Spin it, Robbie, when you want to, buddy. It's all yours. Oh, he hit the button. There we go. Robert made it in. Let's see who will win the. Oh, Stagecoach Hunt. Hey, good job. Wow. And there's a great queen with a good retinue in your profile picture. That's great. Good retinue. That means it's a strong pheromone odor to that queen. Well, congratulations. Good job. That's great. You'll have a chance to really do some good studying before we start our series on how to raise queens. Yep. Good job. Marianne Livingston asked me a question by email. And it was interesting. I'm not going to read it all out. It's a little bit long, but she might be here tonight. I think she is. But she was wondering in raising queens if she could use 2 frames and split them into the isolation cages and fill a box with 5 cages each with 2 frames on top of a brood box instead of using a queen excluder and placing only new queen in the finishing box. Thank you. So I'm a little confused. I'm not sure where you're placing that queen. So one of the things I know right off the bat, I don't think you can get 5 of those cages in a deep. Can you? They're pretty wide. I know they take up the space of 2. They might fit. I don't know if 5 will fit, but maybe you've already measured it, but it's going to be tight. But the other thing that would be a concern of mine about that is the queen, The queen, you're trying to keep, you're going to allow the queen to get too close to those grafts. Yeah. So in other words, if they're in an isolation cage, I think the queen could curl her abdomen through the bars on those cages and stab every one of those queen cells. It would be way too risky for me to do it. I've made videos of queens pushing their abdomen all the way through the queen material. It's a thorax that stops the queen from going through, not the abdomen. So she can sting and she'll kill those. Definitely. And when we use a queen excluder on the bottom deep, she can't get anywhere near the grafts, the queen cells. And so that's why it's going to work better. Marianne, I think so. But hey, you know me, I think everybody should try something. Try it. I don't pretend or claim to have all the answers or know it all at all. So you might have a revolutionary way of doing the Doolittle method better and work better. So, you try it and see what you think. It might work out good. All right, let's have a few more questions. Every question I answered tonight, I won't be answering it tomorrow on my green chair answer day. So I got it in here. Danny, these timelines are for 45-day bees, right? How does that stack up with bees with winter physiology? Yeah, what I gave you were for summer bees. Winter bees are a little different. They go into a type of on hold scenario with those winter bees because they're not overworked. They're able to stay kind of like in stasis to pick up where they left off when they're ready to. It's odd. I know it's unusual to even consider that, but that's why we call it a different physiology. They're ready to go. They can actually make royal jelly 2 months into winter, where a bee in the summertime can't do that. They'll be dead in 2 months. Wow, that's amazing. Winter physiology bees are amazing. I love them. What age do they do orientation flights? Well, that's a good question. We believe that bees will do orientation flights quite often, quite early, but I should say they'll fly. They'll do these close around the hive potty flights. But to actually do an orientation flight, we believe that they're doing it several days before they start flying, whatever that means, 1 to 3, 5 days before they start flying. And those orientation flights, they'll fly very close to the hive, circle around it, and go back in. Then they take another orientation flight, go a little further out to a flower that's maybe 10 feet over there and fly back home. So they're just like all little kids. You don't ride your bike too far from home till you know your surroundings, and then you might try a 20-mile biking trip like I did today because I know my way home. I was just worried I'd have a flat tire in the cold weather. It'd be terrible. All right, let's see what time it is. Oh, good. We got a few more minutes. I love answering questions. Are all bees foragers and workers? How do they decide who's a nurse bee and a worker bee and a forage bee? Oh, by age. Remember, bee biology. So a forager is past the age of 23 days old. That's only when they become foragers. The other bees are going to be workers they're going to do work based on their age. So maybe you just dropped in a little bit late, but go back to that slide in this video and you'll see where I break it down what they're doing on each day. They do that based on their development of their glands, what they're producing at the time. And by the way, even though you may have a lot of foragers in the hive, every day they only send out about 20% of the forager team. I think that's really cool. It's really wise to do that in case all those get killed. You still got a team to go out tomorrow. That's pretty brilliant. Yeah. All right, let's take one more question. I want to answer one more tonight. All right. I'm in New Jersey. Last year and this year, all the bees left the hive around December. The hive was full of honey. No dead bees in the hive. What do you think? It sounds like absconding. Could have been robbed. Sometimes when bees get robbed out, they all leave and go somewhere else, but you'll see little chips of wax on the bottom if they're robbed out. But this is a common thing. I don't know what happens. I have no way to explain it. I don't think anybody does. My suspect is that they either got robbed out or they all decided to abscond. That's when all the bees leave with the queen. It's not a swarm, but they all leave. And this is something that happens in the fall, actually. all the bees will just leave, and they'll leave honey behind and everything, and they'll just go for a new hive. Well, people do that sometimes. You ever done that? You ever just want to quit your job and just walk away from it? Ever want to leave your house and buy a new house? Ever want to leave your car and buy a new one? Yeah, I mean, buy a new car in the middle of winter, like who does that? It's cold outside, but hey, we're all in the animal kingdom, and whatever drives us, we'll never know. I do appreciate all of you. You're so cool. You're so awesome to be here tonight. Means the world to me. And we had such a fun time tonight. I can't tell you how much fun we had. Such good questions, and we're all learning about bees. I learn every day, and I just appreciate being someone that can give you some information so that the reason I do it is because when I first started, I didn't have a lot of resources. That was way back before, it was in the Stone Ages, before we had a pencil or anything. I don't know. And so I don't want you to have to struggle with what I struggled with. You can keep bees so much better if you have more knowledge getting into bees. So always consider educating yourself. I believe that's what you're doing by being here tonight. That's really cool. But I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate all of you so much. You mean the world to me. I want you to stay warm. I want you to really be safe and healthy, and don't despair. If your bees die in the wintertime, it's okay. Don't despair. We can pick this thing up in the spring, throw a new package or a nuke in there, and we can keep going. We can learn a little bit more and do a little different job next year and try again to keep our bees alive. Keeping your bees alive in the winter isn't really a mark for or against you. It's really a challenge to say, am I learning more about this? Am I able to conquer this very challenging part of beekeeping, is helping my bees survive the winter? So I've got you. I got your back. I'm here for you. And we're going to encourage each other. So I do appreciate all of you. I love you so much. Be sure and watch my videos. I've made a lot of videos this week that I want you to watch. One of them is on how to clean frames, get those frames ready in case you do have a dead out, so that you can give them some good, healthy frames. All right, guys, good night. I'll see you in the next video.